Phil, for asking me to speak about Rahab for our Advent devotions, and hello, church family. In Joshua chapter 2, Joshua, the leader of the Israelites, sends spies into the land that God had promised to them. They went to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. I've always wondered why. Why did they go there? Perhaps they thought they might not be found, but they were totally wrong. The king himself found out, and he sent a message to Rahab telling her to bring them out. But she didn't do this. She hid them and told the king that they'd left, sending his men on a wild goose chase. I wonder why. Was she just a rebellious person? She was someone who earned her money through sex, which isn't something that people choose to do unless life has been so challenging they see no other choice. When you've had to fight to survive, you sometimes continue fighting, which can be challenging and counterproductive. But she said it was fear of God that made her do this. She said that everyone who lived in the country were melting in fear, and their courage had failed because they knew God had given the land to the Israelites. And in return for protecting the spies, she asked for protection for her family. She didn't really mention herself. So then we come to the Sunday school part of the story. She let the spies down by rope through her window in the wall of the city and helped them escape. In the New Testament book of Hebrews, in the Hall of Fame, where all the heroes of the Old Testament are mentioned, Rahab is remembered, and her faith was the reason that she wasn't killed. And in the book of James, it says, "Was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did?" We don't hear any more details of Rahab's story, but the genealogy at the beginning of Matthew tells us that she was the great-great-grandmother of King David, and in turn the ancestor of Jesus. Her story had restoration. One of the things I really hope about heaven is that we'll get to find out all the missing bits of the stories in the Bible. So the one word that stands out to me in these passages is James's surprise that even Rahab, the prostitute, was considered righteous. This reminds me of Jesus, who was described as the friend of sinners. He didn't see the same hierarchy of sin as those around him. I'm glad Jesus is a friend of sinners because I'm one. None of us are good enough to meet God's perfect standards, and yet it's really easy to look down on other people. I'm going to finish with a poem that I wrote as a prayer after meeting someone at work who had a similar story to Rahab. Hidden angels, lost inside the grubbiness, lost inside the chaos, lost inside my confusion. But sometimes chinks of light through broken pots stop me and melt me. Maybe she would have been your friend. You were a friend of sinners, friend of the unwashed, the exploited, the obnoxious, who are only fighting back. Maybe she is your friend. Of course she is. She told me. She'd only let me pray for her after she'd prayed for me. I'm not sure who needed that more. Light in the darkness, God with us. Amen.